What's up, everybody? Troy Cartwright here. Welcome back to another episode of 10-Year Town. I'm so pumped for you guys to hear today's guest. But before we get started, do me a favor. Huge favor, but easy to do. Go to 10yeartown.com and join the 10-Year Town community. We appreciate it so much, and I hope you guys are enjoying this beautiful fall weather. Thanks. Today's guest is songwriter Tom Douglas. Tom is a living legend. He is the first ever recipient of the ACM Song of the Decade Award for The House That Built Me. He has written songs for Tim McGraw, Lady A, Keith Urban, Eric Church, and so many more. Tom is one of those people that makes the songwriting community in Nashville so special. He just has a je ne sais quoi. I know you guys are going to learn so much from this episode. So without further ado, here he is, Tom Douglas. Do you write at I feel like the couple times I've written with you, we've written out at your house.
Yes.
But I think I saw you last week up at Sony. Do you, I don't know, 50-50 or?
50, well, it's probably, 60-40 at my house.
Okay.
You get, writers are, I don't think I'm superstitious. I don't even like that word, but I think I am superstitious about certain places where you have success at a place.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if you go cold,
right,
you're like,
got to go back.
The magic's not there. I think it's over there. But I don't think there's really anything to that. But it's certain. I am very affected by the surrounding, by the real estate.
Yeah, I feel that.
And some people are very comfortable in, lime green, antiseptic walls. They're like, it just doesn't matter. So
yeah, I do. I feel like most of the major publishers have undergone renovations over the last 5 years. So it has I would just call it the vibe. The vibe has improved.
And the snacks.
And the snacks are...
Snacks are out. Sony snacks, I will say, are out of this world.
They are. They're very strong. They're very strong in the snack game.
My daughter tells me snacks
Yes.
are out of this world too. I've not tasted.
Yes, I've considered one of the many things on my list of things I haven't done yet is to do some sort of power ranking.
Yes.
Of the publishers and their snacks. And I think Smack is a big one. Sleeper pick would be Combustion. They've got a closet full of some nice snacks. So
snacks, a little snack goes a long way.
No doubt.
And good coffee.
Yes, good coffee is very important. Well, I always start this thing off with the same question, and I was digging into your history a little bit today, so I know this potentially kind of a two-part answer for you, but I do always start this thing off with the same question, which is, how long have you been in town?
Well, I've had two stints. I was here in 1980 to 1984.
Okay.
Left for 13 years.
Wow.
And came back in 1997.
Okay.
Now, I started, I was here for 4 years, got nothing going, kind of reinvented myself as a real estate broker.
Yeah.
Moved to Dallas, was in Dallas, got married, started having a family there from 84 to 97. But I got my first country song recorded when I was 40.
Wow.
And so I started coming back to Nashville 1 week a month from 93 to 97.
Gotcha.
So
and then eventually...
Then moved my family here in 1997.
When you moved here in 97, did you quit doing the real estate?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I enjoyed real estate. I really did. I'm not being self-deprecating. I really wasn't a very good real estate broker. but I worked with amazing real estate brokers, and I enjoyed the people. I just wasn't particularly good at it. So when I had a chance to really do this full time in '97, I really jumped at the chance just so I could spare the real estate business from my brokerage.
And how did you, when you say, so the first four-year stint you were here, you say you had nothing going. I mean, was it just total, like really nothing, or just nothing that you felt like it was possible for you to have a family and do all the things that you wanted to do?
Well, I don't know. I think writers, we tend to talk only in extremes. I never give just a kind of a normal answer. It's got to be some.
Sure.
I made some great friends, and I worked a lot in kind of a Christian label. They were needing lots of songs, and I managed a catalog of songs from Atlanta, Bill Lowry's catalog. It was a very famous catalog, and he'd never had anybody pitch his songs in Nashville. Okay. So I did that, and then I just kind of did a little bit of everything. I road managed a tour that went to Europe, and I did a lot of things, but I just knew that I really wasn't prepared when I got here the first time. And I kind of, as we all know, Nashville, when you're on the outside looking in, it's got to be one of the loneliest places in the world. Yeah. I'm sure it'd be like being a waiter in LA, or, somebody on, a bartender on Broadway wanting to be in the business, and you're not. So I was very relieved to leave Nashville. Although I met my wife here and we decided to get married, I was going to reinvent myself and start all over and try to leave it all behind. It was not just unpleasant. It was, I know this sounds extreme, but it was traumatizing. Yeah. It's devastating when it doesn't work.
I think that is something that is not often talked about, is the music business. I can only speak from personal experience, but just being in Nashville, even when you are having some success or signs of success, you're getting a deal, be that a publishing deal or a record deal or something like that, there's a lot of traumatizing stuff that happens that you don't. I know personally, I just didn't really register it for a long time for what it was. Yeah. But that's been helpful for me to sort of recognize, like, oh, okay, was sort of traumatized by that experience, so that's why I'm afraid to go through these types of things again, and just trying to navigate how to, it's never personal, right? It's just it can be lonely.
Yeah, it's I think the mental aspect of kind of the fragility of the mindset of the writer is something that we do need to talk about and own up to. The ability really to do this, even, I've been doing it now, I've been with Sony since 1993, so I've been there 31 years and just signed up for 4 more years. Wow. So, but the ability to do it over long periods of time, it does take, it's a fearlessness that is required that is, it's just uncommon. Most people do not have the ability to absorb the rejection, take the rejection deeply and personally, and then somehow or another let it dissipate and go right back at it. It's an uncommon, it's a gift. And most people don't have it because the rejection is just, it's foreboding.
Yeah, it's a lot. My sister was in town this summer, and I was driving her up and down Music Row and just sort of, pointing things out. Yeah. I was explaining the rejection, and she goes, Isn't that hard? And I kind of looked at her and I thought about it. I said, well, I guess it is, but I just never really, you try not to think about it.
I know. Well, I guess we don't want to dwell on it, but I think, the community of people, our community, our brothers and sisters in arms, it's healthy sometimes just to admit that and call it for what it is.
No doubt.
I was telling someone a couple of weeks ago, if I get the top of 16th Avenue in Wedgwood and drive down the one way down to Sony, I get increasingly sick to my stomach with each passing block. I just have to put blinders on and not look at all the different number one banners on the left and the right. And like, hey, that's not where God has called me. I wish it was, but it's just not. And I got to go and do this. And there's that other thing that will, you can easily get stuck on Grand Avenue and never come back.
No doubt. So when you moved to Dallas, you said you tried to, or you reinvented yourself. Did the songwriting ever leave you, or were you still kind of banging away at it?
It did leave me on purpose. I literally tried to forget it.
Yeah.
Some of that also, everything is nuanced in what we do. Nothing's very clear. My father, who was kind of with me at the time, had gotten very ill, and he was here. He had been with me for the latter part of my chapter in Nashville, and just having my father here, my father sick, I was kind of caring for my father here. The culmination of all that was just time to start anew. Yeah. And so I really tried to put all that behind me and throw myself into the real estate business. And at the time you kind of look at things as, well, that was a failure. I wasn't particularly successful in real estate, but now we know somehow or another, God uses all those broken pieces of glass and turns them into a stained glass window, along the way of our lives. And it's like, okay, I did not have the context to see how that broken piece of glass is going to be in this real pretty window that he was put together.
Oh, that's very well said. And so from my reading I was doing today, about your story, I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess there was some sort of I don't know if it was a songwriting contest or something. You played some songs for some people in Austin.
Yes.
And was that sort of what started the pull for you back to Nashville?
I say I tried to leave it behind, and I did, but occasionally I would go to, they had a Dallas Songwriters Association.
Okay.
So anytime there was a gathering of songwriters, I would go because I still did love it, even though I hated it. And I went to a songwriting seminar in Austin. It was, I believe, a part of the Nashville Songwriters Association. Okay. They would do these seminars in different places.
Gotcha.
And I went down, and they're kind of cattle calls, where you can meet with two representatives from Nashville, and so you're in a room with 30 people, and they'll listen to a verse and a chorus, and they'll give you some feedback.
Okay.
And the people on the outside, that probably sounds demeaning and dehumanizing, but it's really not, because that's all you want. You want some honest, critical feedback. And so, number 1 through 15, they listened to a verse and a chorus, and they gave them some feedback. I'll say I was number 16, and they listened to the first verse and the first chorus, and they didn't turn it off. And they listened to the second verse and the second chorus and the bridge and the third chorus. The demo, which I still have, it's literally 5 minutes and 45 seconds, and they listened to the whole thing.
Wow.
I was like, I got to call that a victory, that in and of itself. they got through and they said, well, it's interesting. You're clearly not a singer. And the song is not pop and it's not country. It's just one of those millions of songs that just doesn't fit anywhere. But it's a pretty good song. Keep at it. So I assumed that song was not good. I went to another cattle call later in the afternoon and played another song because I assumed the song that I'd played earlier was not good.
Yeah.
Midway through the second song, it was Paul Worley from Nashville, who was with Sony at the time. And I had known him as a guitar player 10 years earlier. Now he was one of the chief creative guys at Sony and was producing all kinds of people. And Paul stopped and he said, who's singing that? I know that guy, you in the pink shirt. And so I reconnected with Paul after the seminar, bought him 4 glasses of wine, said, regrettably, I have to give you a cassette as he got on the elevator. And 2 weeks later, he called and he said, I think you've turned the corner. Let me run with a couple of these songs.
Yeah.
The song that they had passed earlier in the morning was Little Rock that Paul Worley actually recorded on Colin Ray. And it went to went to number 1 like a year later.
Wow. And
just goes to show you they don't always know.
Yeah. Well, it's, and that was, that was 100%er.
Yeah.
And were you, when that went number 1, were you still living in Dallas?
Yeah, I was still a real estate broker.
Wow.
I didn't trust the music business then. I don't trust the music business now.
Yeah.
It doesn't trust me either. So I guess we're even.
Yeah. Wow. That's so amazing. What did that feel like?
It felt validating, even though we say we don't really need the validation, but we desperately need the validation. So it felt validating. It felt affirming. But like most things, it only made you would think that would be like satisfying. I was a real estate broker in Dallas. I had a beautiful wife and 3 children. Why not just enjoy your life out there in Dallas? But oh no, then I had to start coming back to Nashville 1 week a month.
Yes, it started sucking you in.
It sort of sucked me in one more time. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's like Hotel California. You can check out, but you never leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So that happens. You move eventually, a few years later, you move to Nashville. And at this point, you're all in. You're writing.
Yes.
You're doing the 3, 4, 5 days a week.
Yes.
And how long after you move here does it take to get something going again?
Yeah. Well, I moved here, I guess, in 97. I because I had a hit my first time out, that gave me some credibility in Nashville.
No doubt.
In the writer community. So that really helped. I think it's so much easier if you have a calling card.
Yeah.
Like Troy Cartwright wrote blank.
Sure.
And all of a sudden it's like, okay, you're kind of in the club.
Right.
So, I was a kid in a candy store, honestly, because just being here, writing with all these interesting people, looking back, honestly, I'd learned to write by myself. And then I came here and quickly forgot how to write by myself when I started co-writing myself into oblivion.
Yeah.
And it's taken me, it's 30 years later. Now I'm still trying to find that guy that wrote Little Rock again.
Yeah.
That's the guy.
Wow.
And he keeps escaping. Occasionally I see him.
It's so hard.
So hard.
I've been trying to convince myself recently that I don't have to have a co-write to write a song, and I've been kind of going down that path, that solo write path, which is what before I moved here.
Yes.
11 to 3 every day. When I was after college, I lived in Dallas and I would write by myself. Like it was my job, and it wasn't a job, it was a delusion. Yes. Yeah, it's just, it's interesting. It does that guy is, that's such a good way to put it. I see him sometimes.
Yeah. He's He's there. He calls you, and he's like a mirage. But you just have to keep searching for him, because there is an innocence and a purity and an honesty in that guy that still wants to be heard.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you are sort of, I don't know, you're back in Nashville, you're doing all this stuff. I guess there's like a few of my favorite songs that you've been a part of that I was just going to ask you about if you remember anything interesting about writing them. I guess the first one is House That Built Me. And when did you write it, and did it, kind of describe to me the journey of the song?
Well, our friend Alan Shamblin, it was his idea.
Okay.
Alan and I were doing a writer's round in Sundance, Utah in 2002.
The Bluebird thing?
The Bluebird thing.
Okay.
Alan came in the restaurant early one morning. I was eating breakfast. He said, what if we wrote a song not about the houses that we build, but the house that built me? Mm. And literally when Alan said that, the water froze in the pitchers, the forks were suspended in midair, the waiters and waitresses turned to stone and crumbled to dust, the earth clicked back, 3 steps. It was a powerful idea.
Yeah.
And I begged Alan not to utter those 5 words to anybody until we got back to Nashville. Got back, he'd written his first track. He'd written 3 verses. I'd written 3 verses. We put it together, did our first demo. It was epic. It was 10 minutes long. We turned it into the publisher, and their response was, cool, which is, in Nashville is code speak for we will never, ever listen to that song again. Yeah. And so that was 2002. We would write other songs and talk about the house that built me occasionally. And then 2009, we dusted it off. And
so 7 years later?
7 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, and we spread it all out on my coffee table. We looked at all the lyrics, and we actually had too much information instead of not enough. But we were missing the setup line for the hook. We were missing, if I could just come in, I swear I'll leave.
Yeah.
Won't take nothing but a memory from the house that built me. When we had that, the whole thing really clicked. And we demoed it again, turned it in, and the angels sang hallelujah.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. And then did it find its way pretty soon, pretty quickly?
Terry Wakefield was my guy at Sony at the time, and he started sending it out to everybody, and it got a great response from everybody.
Yeah.
And was on hold, I think officially for Blake Shelton.
Okay.
And this is not true what I'm getting ready to tell you, but it's such a great story that I'll tell you anyway. So Scott Hendricks produces Blake Shelton, sent a FedEx package with a CD to Blake Shelton. He was getting off a tour on a Sunday night. He lands, or his bus pulls into somewhere in nowhere, Oklahoma. His FedEx package is waiting for me. He gets in his truck, driving back home. It starts raining. The thunder is thundering, and the lights are flashing. And he puts the CD in, the third song in. His girlfriend's in the shotgun seat. She starts weeping hysterically. And he said, baby, what's wrong? And she said, that's my story. And he said, well, that's your song if that's your story. Wow. And that's how the song got to Miranda Lambert.
Wow.
As I say, that's not really true, but
yeah,
it's an awfully good story.
It's a very good story. So she cuts it, and the rest is history, I guess.
Yes.
It's a very big, to me, that is one of her, career-defining songs.
Yeah. Well, she, it's magnificent. Everything about it. She really owns the song. It's kind of fun to just be detached from something like that.
Yeah. Get to watch it happen.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. Well, I was kind of driving in today, just thinking, what do I want to ask you about? As I have this rare opportunity to get to pick your brain here. And one of the things that I was sort of curious about, if you are willing to indulge my curiosity, is I feel like your songs, and having written with you a few times, we talk a lot on here about like the writer's role.
Yeah.
And every writer, you know, in the room seems to have a role, and that role can change day to day, of course, you know, depending on what the room requires. But I feel like you're so branded and so known for like bringing, I don't know how to describe it except to say like there's a soul to what you do that is so clear in your songs. And I wonder if do you think that that's something that has always been a part of you, or is that something that you've sort of discovered as like a superpower over time, or do you ever think about it at all?
I don't really know exactly how to answer that. I do know what you're saying. It's not intentional. Honestly, it's not there. And I mean this sincerely. I often wish that I could write about hot girls and cold beer. I really do. That would be fun.
Me too.
Windows down, you know, all the things. I mean, all those things that they say are cliches. I actually like them. Windows down, pink toenails on the dashboard, you know, going down to 30A, smelling the salt air, tan lines and bikinis and margaritas. I like all that.
Yeah.
It's not real when I try to write about it. So I do, you know, I mean, we all have degrees of empathy, I suppose. I think I have a high degree of empathy where I really feel things very deeply.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so, you know, pain, whether it be fictional or whether it be, you know, things that I've experienced, it is in the pain where the beauty is revealed.
Yeah.
And so I think I consciously or subconsciously, I am willing to really embrace the pain because I do know that something beautiful will come out of this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always feel broken. I've written about one protagonist. I've written one song literally about 3,000 times. I've got one protagonist. I put him in different situations. He's always in a jam, and I've got 3 minutes and 40 seconds to get him in the jam and out of the jam and somehow back whole.
Yeah.
So it's because it's a cathartic experience for me to have this release and this redemption for this protagonist, because the protagonist really is me.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly feeling the need for God to rescue me from me, and so those are my characters.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like the line that, I don't know, that's you. That's what you're bringing.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I got.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. I've tried to do other things, and I'm just, it's terrible. I could play you literally 2,500 really bad songs because and those times I just wasn't true to who I was.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to be yourself. And it's hard to show it. I don't know. It's hard to like show it through. I just did an interview recently, and we were talking about a song I'd put out, and next thing I know, 5 minutes into this interview, I'm telling this person like, yeah, it's just so hard to tell someone who you are.
Yes.
And every time I release a song or write a song or whatever, it's getting reflected back to me. And I don't always, sometimes like what's being reflected back to me feels very at odds with how I feel.
Right.
And so I'm always trying to be true to that emotion, you know, and that person, but and easy, you know?
It's really, I mean, again, that's part of the difficulty that people on the outside looking in They don't understand the discipline, the mental discipline and the mental strength that it takes to constantly be willing to do that.
Yeah. What are there things that you do to kind of, I don't know, I call it like source ideas? Do you like to read? Do you like to watch movies? Like what kind of fills your well?
Yeah. I do have a real process.
Okay.
And I think like most of us, I am pretty disciplined in the process that I have.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is pretty regimented. I mean, I get up at the same time, I have to exercise. I have kind of the same thing for breakfast. I love newspapers. I love the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times.
Okay.
I think the best writing in America is still in newspapers.
Yeah.
There's some great newspapers. I mean, they all have agendas, but
right.
Who doesn't? I have an agenda. But, so I just want great writing. And, I have to constantly be, now I'm going through the book of Proverbs, this whole year. It's just painstaking. But I have to be in the Word. That really replenishes me and recenters me.
Yeah.
And I do love fiction, great fiction. Like literally your high school English reading list, you could read that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And be fine. The Great Gatsby, the To Kill a Mockingbird, The Old Man and the Sea. I've actually been reading, this will sound like I'm bragging, but I have been reading the Russian authors like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. And it's really fascinating just to see it's written in Russian, but the English translation of these works are just,
they're fascinating.
Spellbinding. Yeah. And I do love movies.
Yeah.
Love movies.
When you read something, are you highlighting, like, do you find an idea and like write it down in your phone, or is it just sort of a thing that goes in the giant blender?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, but honestly, I think ideas that are so powerful, they become indelibly etched in your mind.
Yeah.
And I will write them down.
Yeah.
But I'm not highlighting that's almost too organized a way to read. I want to get lost in the story.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the beauty of reading books, is it's kind of the only way you can live more than one life.
Yes.
I feel like if you read, when I finished East of Eden, was like, I felt like I had lived 3 or 4 lifetimes, and I mean, it's a long book, but it changed me, a good book will change the way that you perceive the world.
I felt like that about The Grapes of Wrath. You get to the end and, the dying man and the daughter that I guess had the child that died, and the man was dying, and she nursed the dying man. It was like, wow.
Yeah, it's pain.
That's a beautiful pain.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's fascinating. And I don't know, it's inspiring. I think people just are trying to figure out how to like stay inspired, and you've been doing this for so long. So it's like kind of sounds like a lot of the same stuff that we're all doing. You've just been doing it longer.
Well, I think so. And I think reading great literature, I think that has elevated my lyric writing more than any single thing that I did. I for whatever, I got a bee in my bonnet about the time that I wrote Little Rock, and I just decided, I kind of felt stupid. It's like I've had all this education, and I still feel stupid. How is that possible? So I thought, well, maybe one way to remedy it would be to read all the books of Hemingway.
Yeah.
So I started reading all Hemingway, and I don't think I've ever been the same.
Yeah.
He writes very sparsely, and concisely, but I'm almost more Faulknerian, even though I find Faulkner very difficult to read. But
it's very hard to read.
very hard to read.
Do you write at all?
I do, yeah.
And what do you, is it like a journaling thing or for?
Yeah. So I've written, I don't know, probably 4 books.
Yeah.
Fiction.
Yeah.
And I do this, it's performance storytelling where it's a story, but I write songs that propel the narrative.
Oh, very cool.
So I do that, and I've recorded those. I've sent them to publishers. I've tried to get all these different platforms interested, and nobody has any interest, which I get. But I just discovered Substack.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that?
I am.
So I am now. My first book is out, where my daughter Claire partners with me. Maybe I think I work for Claire. I think it's the other way around. But anyway, Claire is releasing this one book that I've written called A Songwriters Manifesto.
Yeah.
And we're releasing that on Substack, and that's fun because you get interaction from people.
Yeah.
And it's just a great platform that aggregates all kinds of content.
Yeah. And I think that's
Are you on Substack?
I'm not.
Oh.
I'm not, but I've been really seriously writing for a couple years now.
Fiction?
I wouldn't, I guess it's fiction. I wouldn't even know how to describe it. I have not shown it to a soul. I will send Ben a page every now and again if I'm really feeling good about it, you know?
Yeah.
But
what does Ben say? Okay. Thumbs up.
okay. Well, there's one.
There's one.
Know? But I'm intrigued. You know, it's very scary to me.
Yeah.
It's totally different than writing songs, right?
Yes.
I would say in a lot of ways it's harder, but it's very personal.
Yes.
Because it's just me. There's
Right.
there's nobody else doing it with me. So I don't know. It's interesting to me. But what do you're talking about Substack and all these there's all these different ways now that you can sort of get your thing that you do to people.
Right.
And the music business has changed and is changing so much, and it's probably always changing, but it feels like the change is accelerated in the last 3 or 4 years. Do you ever, I don't know, do you worry about it, the craft of songwriting, or do you think, probably just think about it too much and it's going to be fine?
You know, I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I have a daughter and son-in-law that are both songwriters.
Yeah.
But there literally is, I've gotten better at this. I wasn't as good at it when I was your age, but I try not to give too much energy to things over which I have absolutely no control. And I'll tell you, I mean, having gotten here since I got here in 1993. They've been saying that since 1993.
That the sky is falling?
The sky is falling.
Yeah.
But I think if you write great art, if you create great art will be compelling, and you will be compensated in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm banking. I know that's true.
Yeah.
I don't worry about, so it's just, we really are in control of our destiny because we can create it.
Yeah.
And there's a great power in that. We just have to make sure we take the power and, assimilate it.
Yes. That makes sense.
We are leaders.
Yeah. And it's the agency is all on us.
Yes.
The writer to make the thing. And what you're saying resonates with me.
Yeah.
But it's very scary because you can't, in order to achieve the thing that you're describing, to make something great requires a lot of discipline, and it requires a lot of kind of trial and error and being honest with yourself about what is great and what isn't. Because the last thing the world needs is like another song.
Right.
But they always need a great song.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, I'm very encouraged. I think during your lifetime, something's going to happen somewhere, and the copyright law, which really is
Right.
that's the great villain.
Yeah.
I mean, Spotify, all these streaming services, they are doing what big streaming corporations do. They're
Right.
maximizing profit for the shareholders.
Yeah.
They're not worried about us. So the problem is the archaic copyright law, which the NMPA and NSAI, all these great organizations are trying to change. Someday, somehow, that law will be changed, and there will be a competitive marketplace where we can negotiate our rates. That will happen.
Yeah.
And that's going to be great.
Yes.
I've never sold, I know this is tangential, but
Yeah.
I have never sold anything, as it relates to catalog.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've left money on the table. And if you talk to most other people, they've become very wealthy. But I love the songs, and I think over time, owning the songs is going to be tremendously value for you and your family and your estate and your legacy. It's a valuable commodity.
Yeah.
I love it. I just love owning everything.
Yeah. Yes.
So,
I love that. The thing that you're describing about the law will change. I think about that a lot, but I can't do anything about it. So I just try and not.
It will happen. It'll be mysterious and crazy, and who knows?
We'll never see it coming.
We'll never see. I think it'll be hiding in plain sight. We'll never see it coming, but it will happen.
Yeah. Well, I got one last question for you before we get out of here. And before I ask, thank you again for doing this and for lending your years of experience to this audience. I know that this will be a great episode.
So happy what you're doing for songwriters, and I've heard so many great things about it and the response and in town and people out of town. It's a great work that you're doing to
thank you.
Just give people, validate the struggle and
little perspective.
Yes.
I think it gives people some perspective. So my aunt was just in town, and she was like, she listens to most of the episodes, and I don't know, I feel like she's not in this business, but she has like an understanding now of whatever this thing is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my last question for you is, if you could give one piece of advice or some advice to somebody that's kind of just getting started on their journey, what would you say?
Gosh, one piece of advice.
Doesn't have to be one piece.
Yeah, I mean, I do think in this book that I'm writing, that I've written called Songwriters Manifesto, the premise of the book is I don't think the songs I'm writing today are as good as the ones I wrote 30 years ago.
Mm.
And I don't think the songs that you are writing today, not you specifically, but you, the universal you, the songs that we are writing are as good as the songs of 34, 50, 60 years ago. Wow. I think we've forgotten how to write a song.
Wow.
So I came up with this very basic, it's a checklist, a 10-step checklist of how to write a song. Wow. And I know that sounds almost arrogant for me to say, who are you to come up with a checklist? But I think I went back and really looked at the songs of mine that have had traction over the years, and subliminally or unintentionally or intentionally, I actually did these 10 steps in the songs that have had most traction. Mm. Most of the times I don't. I get in a hurry. I skip steps. There's a number of reasons why we don't do it, but so I would say, number one, the most important thing I think is if you have a great idea, you might write a great song. If you don't have a great idea, there is no way you will write a great song.
Yeah.
So we need to spend more time on the front end confirming and affirming that we do have an idea that everybody loves in the room. And if not, then just hold tight. Keep digging.
Yeah.
Another thing, I mean, this will sound like I'm a dinosaur saying this, but part of the problem also is we're producing the song before the song's even written.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great handicap to the song. You get in there at 11, at 3:30, you feel the pressure to have this thing baked and shaked.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, the guy's putting the vocal on, you'll never be able to come back to it.
Yeah. It'll be gone forever.
It's gone forever, which is none of that's true.
Yeah.
But that's in our mindset. I think that's detrimental to the quality of songs.
Yeah. I saw a John Mayer interview this weekend. I'm sure it's old, but it was just resurfaced to me, and it was talking about how dinner is the enemy of great art.
Wow.
Which is just because you got to go,
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's true. And that's why so many times the pre-chorus is the bridge, and
yes, yes, right.
You just gotta get it in, get it done, so you can, I don't know, go get a beer or go pick up the kids or whatever.
And the thing that's hypocritical is it's not a numbers game.
Yeah.
And it is a numbers game. I have had more activity when I wrote and turned in more songs than when I don't write and turn in as many songs.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's
hard to square.
It's hard to square.
Yeah.
But honestly, again, spending too much time trying to square that up, you'll go crazy. Some of that you just have to live in the tension. There's a lot of unresolved tension that we have, and that's one of them. We're not going to square that up. Just write the next song.
Yeah. And it's like, give it more. Try giving it 10% more next time.
Right.
See where that gets
and
you.
Slow down.
Yeah. That's a lot of advice that people give on here is like, just slow.
Man.
It's not all, it doesn't all need to happen tomorrow.
No.
But it feels like it does.
It does. It always feels like that. And that's the enemy trying to distract us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate it. And that's it. That's the pod. See you later. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening. If you want to submit a question for one of our Q&A episodes, you can do so at tenuretowne.com. We would love it if you would join the Tenure Town community, which just means we'll send you updates via email about stuff we got going on. And of course, please rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Wherever you listen or watch this thing, we appreciate you so much. See you next week.